We'll get into that. Now, remember, David is the singer, currently charged with first-degree murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14, unlawful mutilation of human remains, all in connection with the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Prosecutors allege that he was in a sexual relationship with her, that back on April 23rd, 2025, prosecutors allege that David lured her to his home in LA, stabbed her to death, allegedly watched her bleed out, which is an important detail that I'm going to get to, and then reportedly took horrifying measures to conceal this killing, all in an effort to keep her quiet about their relationship, to prevent her from coming forward, that this would have ruined his very successful, lucrative career.
The prosecution's filing states the victim threatened to disclose damaging information about her relationship with the defendant to end his career and destroy his life. That sentence is not a summary. It is an autopsy of motive pulled directly from a digital record that never forgets, and in Department 105 of the Clara Shortridge Foltz Criminal Justice Center. Those words are about to become the structural beams of a case that will ask one devastating question: what is a career worth? Imagine a scale. On one side sits a debut album, a tour announcement, the machinery of fame beginning to hum. On the other side sits a single text message from a 14-year-old girl telling you she is going to burn it all down. That scale is the prosecution's Exhibit A, and the allegation isn't that he panicked. The allegation is that he calculated. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Trial Theory Unsealed. Because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The timeline the state will attempt to construct begins on April 22, 2025. That night, according to the filing, the defendant and the victim engaged in a lengthy argument described in detail in their text messages. Translation: prosecutors believe they can reconstruct the exact moment the relationship stopped being a secret and started being a liability. The messages reportedly show jealousy over other women, broken promises about a future together, and then the pivot, the threat to disclose. That word, disclose, is doing enormous work here. It turns the victim from a participant into a witness against him. And under California law, murder of a witness is a special circumstance. It makes the defendant eligible for the death penalty.
The special circumstances allegations, which carry heftier penalties, potentially the death penalty, include murder of a witness, murder for financial gain, lying in wait. Prosecutors allege that he used a deadly and dangerous weapon, a sharp instrument, to kill Celeste. And prosecutors allege that he purchased a blue inflatable pool, chainsaws, a body bag, heavy-duty laundry bags, that he dismembered her body, that he made suspicious trips to the Santa Barbara County area, that he lied to friends and associates about the alleged smell of decomposition in his residence. These are all the allegations. And it all culminates September 8th, 2025. That is the day after what would have been Celeste's 15th birthday that her dismembered, decomposed body is found, reportedly in the front trunk of a Tesla, allegedly registered to David at an LA tow yard. He has entered a not guilty plea, and he is innocent unless proven guilty. So that's where we're at. Now I got to go into this. So first things first, before I even get into the...
What follows in the prosecution's narrative is not impulsive. It is logistical. The purchase of a blue inflatable pool, chainsaws, a body bag, heavy-duty laundry bags. These are not items you grab in a rage. These are items you order when silence has a deadline. The prosecution will argue he was cleaning up a problem before it could speak. He watched her bleed out, the filing claims. Whether that detail comes from forensic reconstruction or the cold absence of a 911 call, the implication is the same. There was time to change course. Time was declined. And now the friends. Asia Collins, a former associate, took to a live stream and described confronting him directly. She told him a girl was saying he was with a 13-year-old. His response, captured in her recounting, "She's like 19. She pressed for proof. He provided something. She backed off." But that interaction now reads like a missed checkpoint. A moment where the alarm was ringing and someone outside the house almost heard it. The prosecution may call her not to prove what she saw, but to prove what he said before the evidence became impossible to ignore.
To be David's former friend, she posted a Twitch live stream on her account earlier this month. It was titled, "Welp, Let's Talk." Here's a portion of what she said on that live stream.
So immediately I go to David. And I'm like, hey, this girl's saying that you're with a 13-year-old. You need to explain yourself. He was like, dude, that's not even true. Like, she's like 19. And I was like, no, she's not. She said she's 13. Like, show me proof. And you know what? He showed me proof. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna back off. I feel like I'm harassing my friend.
And by the way, TMZ also reported that back in June, she posted online seemingly calling David a psychopath who lied and betrayed everyone around him. So she makes the point, look, how much more did you want me to question him? It's not like I just took his word. You know, he's saying you show me proof. I'm not sure what you want me to more to do, but she clearly doesn't believe him now. And she was trying to make the point to clarify the situation, but she was like, she pressed him. You know, she was balancing between pressing him about this alleged relationship at the same time, not harassing who she thought was a friend.
The digital forensics will take center stage. The prosecution doesn't need to prove motive, but juries hunger for it. And these messages, the ones where a 14-year-old threatens to end a career, will be displayed for the court like a blueprint. They will show jealousy. They will show a power imbalance crystallizing into rage. And they will show a defendant who, according to the state, decided that his future was worth more than her life.
Killing for financial gain. I think a part of it, they would have to establish where was he at in his career? Why did he need Celeste to be quiet?
Absolutely. And I think that's the story, or at least the theory that the prosecution is going to be putting forward before that jury.
By the way, in terms of this alleged child pornography, right, that they claim is on David's devices, is that something that I imagine will be presented at a preliminary hearing through the lead detectives?
To some extent, Jesse, I think, right? We've heard about that child pornography, whether it's photographs or videos of Celeste Rivas. I believe that may be the case, and we're not going to see that certainly, but we may hear about that. And I think we're going to hear the testimony about that being recovered off the cell phone, because again, it goes to some aspects of the crimes that he's charged with, of course. And I think we're certainly going to learn about that. And to the extent that he has it, I think it was a relatively sizable amount, if I understand correctly. But that's going to be damning evidence ultimately for him when it's relevant to some of the crimes that he's charged.
Killing for financial gain. That's the special circumstance, not passion. Profit.
Between David and Celeste, or is there going to be a Cellbrite expert or somebody from digital forensics? Because you go back to the prosecution's brief, and they say that there are these text message exchanges between the defendant and the victim on April 22nd and April 23rd, 2025, where the victim threatened to expose the defendant and destroy his career. That the night prior, April 22nd, 2025, defendant and the victim engaged in a lengthy argument described in detail in their text messages. The messages revealed the victim's jealousy over defendant's relationships with other women, as defendant led her to believe they had a future together. She became extremely upset and threatened to disclose damaging information about her relationship with defendant to end his career and destroy his life. So do you think that either the lead investigators or somebody from digital forensics is going to testify to those, the content, the substance of those messages?
Yeah, absolutely, Jesse. I think we're going to see those text messages. We already know the substance or the sum and substance of those text messages based on those filings. And the prosecution is likely to call someone from the cell phone carrier or an investigatory body that is able to lay the evidentiary foundation for those text messages to come into evidence. And of course, the detectives or law enforcement staff who ultimately took those or were able to get that off his phone or any other methods to get those messages that were exchanged between the two. But I certainly believe that we're going to see those text messages. And of course, the prosecution doesn't have to show or prove motive, but there's always a desire. This is a preliminary hearing, but let's say this goes to trial, a desire from the jury to hear motive, for a complete narrative as to why something so tragic happened. And those text messages give the prosecution the ability to argue motive here in this case, whereas there's the jealousy, the threat to expose him right when he's about to release that that premiere or the first album, go on tour, and he's on the sort of verge of stardom there.
The medical examiner's report is the ghost in the room, because of death, multiple penetrating injuries. But the report also notes extensive post-mortem changes, full thickness dismemberment, the ethanol level so low it could be decomposition or ingestion. The defense has already signaled its path. The actual evidence in this case will show that David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, and he was not the cause of her death. And that's a direct quote from his attorneys. And it tells you where the cross-examination will go. They will hammer the decomposition. They will ask whether the medical conclusions are certainty or educated reconstruction.
Sure. So let's take that into two parts, right? From the evidentiary standpoint, what do we hear from these medical examiners? Well, certainly the methodology that they used in analyzing and evaluating the body, right? That's going to be out there in that courtroom. And again, it goes to the sufficiency of the evidence and what leads the prosecution to bringing these charges against Burke, right? So that's what we're going to hear from them. And I'm certainly, again, same, you know, you're going to hear about the condition of the body. It's going to probably be difficult to hear about the decomposition of the body and how they came to the ultimate medical opinion or analysis as to the manner of death and the cause of death. With the penetration wounds, et cetera. Now, pivot to the defense standpoint. This is your opportunity from a defense standpoint to really challenge the evidence. There's so much which circumstantially and the other forensic evidence and data and the purchase history and all that doesn't really bode well for Burke in this case, for David in this case. But when you look at the ME and the sort of the analysis they did, that's some ground where you may be able to achieve from a defense standpoint in attacking the sufficiency of that. Was this body too decomposed to really reasonably get to that opinion from the medical examiner? So we expect that the defense is going to do something right on their end in terms of challenging the evidence. And I think this may be one point, one area of evidence that they may be able to score some points.
They will attempt to turn forensic gaps into reasonable doubt.
Photographic evidence, which in this courtroom may very well be the case, is going to be difficult to see.
That's horrifying. It makes you think about a jury that's going to ultimately see this if this goes to trial, and also her family if the family is in the courtroom. Let's talk about the medical examiner. I actually think the medical examiner is going to be a key witness for multiple reasons. First of all, if you go to the death investigation report, it might be several people. It lists out medical examiner investigator Karen Tapia, deputy medical examiner Dr. Ansel Nam, supervisor, deputy medical examiner Dr. Grant Ho, forensic technician Daniel Garcia. Not sure everybody's going to testify, but the cause and manner of Celeste's death are key. And I do wonder not only what the substance of that testimony is going to be and how it's going to be presented, but also what the defense is going to do. Right? Because if you go to the report, it says death was pronounced at the scene. Autopsy examination was limited by extensive post-mortem changes. There are 2 penetrating wounds of the torso with smooth edges that may represent sharp force injuries. The wound on the upper abdomen penetrates the liver, and the wound on the left chest penetrates one of the left intercostal spaces with disruption of the adjacent ribs' cortical surfaces. The left lung appears intact. The bilateral upper and lower extremities show full thickness dismemberment. Multiple other skin and soft tissue defects are present without apparent associated internal injuries. The etiology of these defects is not clearly apparent due to severe postmortem changes. Postmortem toxicology performed on liver tissue shows the presence of a low level of ethanol, which may be due to postmortem changes or ingestion, and does not appear to be contributory to the cause of death. Given the history and circumstances as currently known by me in the setting of the findings by examination, ancillary studies, and in the absence of other definitive causes of death, the cause of death is multiple penetrating injuries. The manner of death is classified as homicide. You will not have this case without that kind of testimony. So Imran, 2 questions to you here. 1, what can we expect from this witness or witnesses? And 2, this to me feels like we're really going to see the defense challenging the prosecution's evidence, because his attorneys originally said when he was arrested.
But here is the ticking clock moment. If the digital evidence is as clear as the prosecution claims, and the purchase records align with the timeline of the texts, and the friends testify he lied about the smell, then what exactly does the defense cross-examine? The body was too decomposed to tell the full story, but was the cover up too well documented to deny? Because that's the real case. Not what happened in the room, but what happened in the hours after. The cleanup is the confession. There's a phrase buried in the court notice that deserves attention. The court will hold a public lottery for 10 public seats. 10 seats. For a preliminary hearing in a case where a public figure stands accused of dismembering a child to protect his career. Private investigator Steve Fisher hired by the property owner, where David reportedly stayed, posted his objection plainly. That is outrageous and not how public access to the court should work. He's not wrong. And the tension between transparency and order in this courtroom is itself a subplot. The evidence will be presented, but the public will largely be locked outside, pressing their ears to a door they are not permitted to open.
And this part's key. It says, this notice, the court will hold a public lottery for public seats for the preliminary hearing. The court will conduct a public lottery for 10 public seats and 10 standby seats from 7:30 to 8:15 a.m. It's going to be on the first floor lobby of this courthouse on each day of the preliminary hearing. And then it says there's going to be no photography, video, or recording that is allowed in any courtroom, courthouse hallway, or lobby at any time, including the use of cell phones to capture pictures, video, or audio recordings. So you can see why this is going to be an issue in terms of transparency, right? Do you know who's not happy about this? Steve Fisher. We've had him on the program before, the private investigator who has been looking into this case. He was hired by the owner of the property where David was reportedly staying. This is the place near where the Tesla was reportedly towed. He took to X and he posted, quote, "The court is allowing only 10 members of the public into the preliminary hearing in the David case. That is outrageous and not how public access to the court should work. There is supposed to be a reasonable balance between seating for the press and seating for the public. This is a large courtroom, yet only 10 seats are being made available to the public. Her family has not appeared previously, and they could be called as witnesses. So they shouldn't be in the gallery anyway. They are not being held for that purpose. Not to mention, they're not allowing cameras even for the testimony that doesn't include CP. CP, I believe, to be child pornography because they claim that that's what David allegedly had on his devices. Documents have been sealed throughout the case, and now access to the courtroom is being severely restricted. At this point, it feels as though they are making up their own rules. Hashtag David, hashtag."
The pre-trial machinery is now grinding forward. Detectives Josh Byers and Corey File will likely take the stand to summarize the investigation's spine. The tow yard manager will describe the front trunk of a Tesla. The digital forensics expert will walk the court through the messages. And somewhere in that testimony, a 14-year-old girl's words will enter the official record. She said she would destroy his life. The allegation is that he made sure she couldn't. Before this hearing concludes, ask yourself one question. If the evidence is sufficient to move this case to trial, what does that tell us about the line between ambition and annihilation? Pull the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's report. It is publicly available, and read the sections on post-mortem changes. Then ask yourself, was this a case of insufficient evidence, or was the evidence simply too decomposed to scream? Leave your answer in the comments. If you believe sunlight is the best disinfectant, make sure to like this video, share it, subscribe to Trial Theory Unsealed, and turn on notifications. We don't chase headlines. We read the filings.